Hey, noble ones and noble academics. So, we have watched quite a few of Language Sim's language reviews. Italian, up to this point, it was the best one. It was the best one, hands down. We watched his Japanese, we watched his Mandarin, but today, my friend, it's the time to see his review of English, and I'm so looking forward to this. Let's jump right into it.
Howdy, partner. Today I'm going to be reviewing the English language, aka colonizer language, American, McDonald's language, Liberian, or Bidenese. No need for a long intro.
Liberian or Bidenese.
You all know what this series is about at this point. I'm going to discuss what is good and what is bad about the English language from a language learning perspective, and then I'll give it an official Language Simp certified rating on the Simp scale.
Yeah, but you have to, Mr. Language Simp. This used to be purple. I'm on to you. This used to be purple. Why is it green now?
So without further ado, let's begin.
English? Isn't that just the default spawn language that everyone starts with?
No, we speak English because we spawned in America. I know it's hard as an American, but you gotta remember that other countries exist.
What's a country?
But English is the most spoken language in the universe, as over 1.4 billion NPCs speak it just on Earth alone. Which means that learning it will unlock an unfathomable amount of DLC.
True.
And that's because, for a few hundred years, the British Empire did a steamy number 2 on most countries. They colonized the crap out of everyone, which caused the English language to spread like a virus way outside of England's embarrassingly small modern-day borders. And nowadays, the virus continues to spread, because out of the rubble of colonization came the most gigachad country in the entire world. The United States of global interventionism.
Yeah, that flag of yours is top tier.
America. And everyone loves America and the American government. So English is now widely studied all around the world, even in North Korea. In 2024, English is the global language. So if you don't speak English at a conversational level, society considers you a beta male. You won't find a job, you won't get a girl, or a guy. You'll never leave your country because you can't travel, and you can never enjoy My Little Pony in its original language if you don't speak English.
My Little Ponies was sold it to me, I've got to be honest. Like when did I start learning English? I think I was in my teens. I know it was in my teens, and then I moved to the UK. But before moving to the UK, which is where I mostly picked it up, I think... Was I watching My Little Pony? Probably not. But yeah, no, I started hanging out with Americans in Sicily. That's what happened. I started hanging out with Americans in Sicily, and it was so cool that they could speak this language. And of course, I knew a little bit because of video games. I actually think it was a blessing when I was a teenager that a lot of games did not get translated into Italian, nor were they localized, because it forced me to learn at least a little bit of English. And then, when I started hanging out with natives is when I really picked it up.
As a passionate language learner myself, I actually hate that English has become the global language. Back in the day, if you wanted to go to Spain, you had to learn Mexican, and if you wanted to go to Arizona, you had to learn Navajo. But now, if you just know English, you can go everywhere. Most people are forced to learn the language in school, which strips the fun out of it for them. Unlike with other languages, no one learns English for fun, or because they like how it sounds, or because a certain English-speaking country fascinates them.
Of course it's sarcasm here, but I will say, now in our day and age, when you go to Europe, and I'm going to speak mostly for Italy, but in general, I imagine it's similar everywhere, at least in Western Europe, kids are really good. Like, kids are starting to get really good. When I was a teenager, no one knew English. In fact, when I picked it up and came in England and then went back to Italy, I was like a hero. Like, everyone was like, oh, what does that mean? What's the meaning of that video game? How do you pronounce Final Fantasy? Like, people, it was really cool. But now the kids, even like 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds in Italy are really good. They do speak it quite well. Not everyone, but definitely the percentages have changed completely. And whereby, like, my dad's generation, not a chance. Like, my dad, he wouldn't even know how to say hello and good morning. Like, literally. So there was a multi-generational shift, if you will, at least in Southern Europe, because when it comes to Northern Europe, I think the Nordic countries, Scandinavia, they've always been pretty good at English. But Southern European countries, but also France, of course, Italy, I want to say Spain, I don't think we were that good. But that has changed in the last generation or two. It really has. Kids have access to a lot more resources online than we did because there was no online when I was a teenager, mostly. That made it difficult. You actually had to pick up a book, which made it exactly like this face makes it feel like. But then for kids today, they can enjoy their hobbies while learning English and communicating, chatting, and it's really good.
It's always school this, work that, blah, blah. Drop out of school and quit your job. Due to the spread of this linguistic virus, some of the countries with the most speakers of English as a second language include Bollywoodland, Lollywoodland, and Nollywoodland. And there are a lot of people, including me, who are living life on easy mode recruit difficulty as native English speakers,
right,
since we happen to spawn in one of the 19 majority native English-speaking countries. The most notable of which is Belize.
Belize.
Just kidding, I only just found out that place existed 10 minutes ago, but they speak English. But I don't know, who really cares? It's time to get down and dirty and talk about the big dogs. And
oh my gosh, he's gonna speak about the accents now. I'm so looking forward to his humor when it comes to this. Let's go.
Their iconic accents. Americans speak standard normal English, and they sound sophisticated and intelligent. In fact, the accent is so sophisticated that it takes up too much space in Americans' brains, and that's why they can't learn other languages. American English is iconic. It's the accent of pop music, Hollywood, and Fox News. But there are a lot of different types of accents in different regions of America. People from the South sound friendly, hospitable, and Republican. People from California all sound like surfer dudes, like they're totally tubular, bro. People from Minnesota sound a little too Canadian for my taste. And people from Louisiana sound completely untouchable, but they've been crowded, getting them crowded. Yeah, there's a lot of diversity in the US. Now,
it is so true, though. The differences in accents is something that I didn't realize until quite late, I've got to say, because I had this idea of what an American sounds like, which I imagine in my head was general American accent that you normally see in the movies or news podcast. But then when I actually came in contact with people with different accents, like the differences between someone from, I want to say, the Bible Belt, someone from New York, Boston, someone from California, or like the states up north, goodness gracious, completely different, like completely different. And it's what makes the language fascinating. But of course, it's what happens, I want to say, in most countries, maybe all countries. It's just that oftentimes as natives, we think it only happens to our language. So a foreign language is always monolithic in our head, whereas our language, our own language, is like, oh, of course we've got a lot of accents, but in reality, the fact is all languages have got loads of different accents.
Now moving on to England. I recently went there, and I can tell you that it's a country full of depressing weather and depressing food, which depressed me. Y'all probably know that a few months ago, I took a break from YouTube, and that's because I wasn't taking care of my mental health. I'm sure y'all can agree that it's really hard to learn languages when you have a bad mentality, but ever since I started doing therapy, my life has been dramatically better. I'm much more equipped to handle anxiety and stress, and I feel an inner peace that will allow me to...
This is definitely a sponsor.
Learn every single language on the planet. And that's why I'm passionate and...
Yeah, not for me. Let's go to...
Okay, now let's talk about England. I don't hate British accents, but I just wish everyone would stop acting like every Brit speaks in an incredibly elegant and luxurious way. There are two main accents in British English. That of the pretentious, posh, rich, and snobby folk who think it's cool to LARP as wizard royalty, and that of the roadmen. A lot of people think that the posh RP, or received pronunciation spoken by the BBC, is the most comprehensible accent in English, but it's actually the Scouse accent.
Oh, I see.
And then people from Birmingham are renowned for sounding amazing, beautiful, and poetic.
Believe it or not, I think one of my first experiences, of course, my first experience when it comes to an English accent was with RP. Although then again, I would personally distinguish RP from posh. Like posh is kind of a notch, how do you say? It's like a little bit slightly different. Like when it's actual posh, it's different from RP. But yeah, RP, still received pronunciation, is probably what I was exposed to first. Then I was exposed to Cockney, which was, oh my gosh, so different. And that's when I started dropping my H's, and then I had to recover them afterwards. Then, to become an English teacher, you don't want to teach people to drop their H's. And then Liverpool. And that's when I was like mind blown.
Moving on to Discount America, or Canada as they like
Discount
to call it.
America.
Canadians just sound American except with a little twang, and they add A to the end of all their sentences, which makes them sound really insecure. They're so insecure that if you hit a Canadian with your car, he'll say, "I'm sorry, buddy, my buddy hit your nice automobile, eh? Could I give you a toonie so you could pop on by the Timmies and get yourself a double-double, bud?"
They do say sorry. Yeah, they do actually, now that I think about it. I used to not be able to tell them apart, Canadian and American accents, but now I can. And definitely, yeah, that is one of the things that immediately when I hear someone saying sorry, I'm like, yeah, that's a Canadian, immediately.
Australians sound a lot like if British people reproduced with cowboys from Texas.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I really like that.
Yeah.
It sounds badass, wild, flavorful, and cute. Australians love to say the word oi. Oi, oi, oi. It kind of reminds me of a seagull. In general, the more offensive an Australian sounds to you, the nicer they're actually being in reality. If an Australian sounds polite and reserved, they probably hate you. Then there's a bunch of empty water to the southeast of Australia where a few people might speak English, but
oh no,
not. Now it's time to talk about the writing system.
Oh, come on, you can't skip Kiwi. I don't think he's gonna skip it, he's gonna come back to it, because I love Kiwi accent. There was this like channel, they were doing like board game, I think it was, but with a Kiwi accent, and I clicked it for the board game, stayed for the accent.
The English language is written in the standard American alphabet, which is made up of 26 beautiful and iconic letters that look normal and make life worth living. Most other languages either use or steal from this alphabet in some way, and it's obvious why. There are no scary characters. Like, look at the Russian D, and then look at the American D. Which letter would you rather your daughter dated? There are no complicated works of art. Like, look at this Chinese character.
Oh my
You have to pick your pen up off the paper 58 times in order to draw it. On the other hand, every single English letter can be written in a maximum of 3 elegant strokes. The only potential problem is that so many of these letters have multiple pronunciations, and there are groups of letters that make unique sounds, and groups of letters that make the same sounds as individual letters. It just makes no sense. This word should definitely be said as ruge. Why does the GH make an F sound in the word rough? And why on earth does the O make an I sound in the word women? And
women, woman, women.
if you combine all the spelling quirks, you could theoretically write the word potato like this.
Oh my gosh.
English words are screwed
Oh no,
up
I need
too.
to see
This
that.
language
Wait. So I imagine bo. Is that the T? A toe. Oh my gosh, that's a monster. Another one is the word. Oh, there is another one like this. I don't remember it now. It'll come back.
Word potato like this. And English words are screwed up too. This language has the most batshit dictionary I've ever seen. And that's because English is a mutt, as 80% of its vocab are loan words from other languages. That's insane! What even is English? It's just a bunch of other languages. It's not real. English is technically a Germanic language, but I think it should be called a Romance language, as 29% of the words come from Latin, and another 29% of the words come from French, which also came from Latin. I'm a Latino. Another 26% of the words do have Germanic roots, and all of these words sound super strong and masculine, especially when compared to the soft and feminine nature of the Latin words. The word book sounds so aggressive and powerful, while
particularly in a Scouse accent. If you know, you know.
Sounds so aggressive and powerful, while the word novel sounds so wimpy. You could ask a question like a Chad, or you could inquire about something like a beta male. And then all of the useless and irrelevant words like democracy and anatomy come from Greek, while all of the useful and relevant words like loot, thug, bandana, and mogul come from Urdu. But there are still some words that are pure and unique to English, mainly the slang. Slang originating from English that is used so frequently throughout the world is often taken for granted. Like, could you imagine speaking any language without using words like riz, skibbity, phantom tax, sus, bussin', and cap? And English acronyms are some of the most iconic things in the observable universe. How beautiful are acronyms like IDK, BRB,
I don't know, be right back.
BBW,
BBW, I don't know what that is.
TTYL, and FYI.
For your information,
And everyone knows what LOL is.
Yeah.
I've seen people use it and even say lol out loud, both in
True.
French and Russian. But
True.
they don't sound like native English speakers
And
when
Italian.
they say it out loud.
We say that lol. So I've heard girls say it, particularly girls, but yeah, lol. They say that in Italian.
Because this language is pretty impossible to pronounce correctly. There are a few sounds that foreigners struggle to make, one of them being the TH sound, like in the word thick. And words with TH are exceptionally hard. An English learner's worst nightmare is to be chained to the wall in my garage and only released when they can properly distinguish between and pronounce the words tough, thought, though, through, and thorough.
My gosh, yeah. Look at that. Tough, thought, though, through, thorough. I would read it thorough, not thorough, like he did. I would read it thorough, so probably I would never leave his dungeon, I suppose.
Then there's the dreaded R sound, which the Brits and Australians couldn't pronounce if their lives depended on it. Let's see if you can pronounce it.
Yeah.
Look at this little guy. Isn't he cute? Say his name. No,
Beaver.
That's not it. Just say it. It's
Beaver.
a squirrel. It's a squirrel, God.
I don't know why I said I don't know why I said beaver. Oh my god, squirrel. Squirrel.
And what is this? Say it.
A barn.
Say it. Don't spray it. There's no TH in it. It's rural. It's rural.
Rural.
How And so many words are spelled completely differently to how they're pronounced, so good luck with...
Yeah, kernel. Cupboard. What's that? I don't know. Catsup. 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 Cat. I don't know.
words like kernel, cupboard, and ketchup. Fortunately...
Oh, come on. Come on.
English grammar is not actually all that bad. The words all identify as non-binary, which means that there are no cringe, unnecessary grammatical genders.
Makes sense.
The only articles you gotta know are the and and sometimes an if the word after it starts with a vowel sound. There are also no grammatical cases, so words stay the same, unless you're pluralizing them, in which case you'll either add an S or an ES. Except for a few stupid words like fish. Fish is the same for both singular and plural, and
in American English, I have heard people in England say fishes. So it's not wrong to say fishes, but I think they use it when you have... So they do say there is a lot of fish in the sea. So in that case, it stays singular. But I do believe that in the UK, it's considered correct when you have different types. Like you have a red snapper, you have a sea bass, you have tuna, all of these fishes on the table. I think in that case, fishes would be more correct. But then again, I'm not native, so you tell me if I'm full of it.
And I hate it. The plural should be fishs. The subject pronouns are pretty straightforward. There's I, we, you, he, she, it, they singular, and they plural. And thankfully, there's no informal formal distinction as there are in similar languages. Thou used to be the informal version of you that you'd use with your friends,
thy, thou.
and you used to be the formal version you'd use with your wife's boyfriend's dad. But we got rid of thou, so nowadays you can address everyone you come across with the pronoun you. The real fun comes when you're addressing multiple people. You could just say you or you all, but there are several cooler variations like y'all, yous, and in my home state of Pennsylvania, yins. The real grammatical nightmare for English learners are the phrasal verbs. Us natives never even think about how little sense these make. They're the verbs made up of multiple words that we use all the time, like bring in, give in, and take out. The following is a perfectly normal way to speak English, but I can't imagine a non-native understanding it. Sorry to butt in, but you're screwing up. Don't scarf down your food, you'll throw up. I'm cracking down on you, bro. You need to squirrel it away. I'm sizing you up, man. You need to man up and beef up. Don't chicken out, clam up, or flip out. The base conjugation...
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. I think, though, you've got to mention get. Get is the king of baguette. Baguette. Wait, baguette. Literally, you could be like, get in the car, get on the bus, get off the bus, get out of here, get by. I don't make enough money to get by. Get over it. Get up, get down, get rid of it. Like, literally. You've got, like, what, 75, I think I counted?
Conjugations of normal verbs aren't too bad, though. Everything's basically the same, except you add an S or ES to the end of the he, she, and it conjugations. The tenses, though, can get a little little kooky. We use a lot of auxiliary verbs in our
Yeah.
conjugations, mainly will, have, and do. I will survive, I have survived, I do survive. But the kooky part comes in when you
emphatic.
have to combine these auxiliary verbs. I have survived, or I will had been done surviving. The verbs themselves never really change much. But tragically, there are about 200 irregular
Yeah.
verbs in English, but most of them are really common, so you'll learn them fast.
You should call them regular. You know, one time is a coincidence, 2 times maybe a coincidence, 3 times is a pattern, mate. So the irregular verbs should be regular.
Like to do, to go, and to breed. Now it's time to talk about shock factor.
Please.
How will native English speakers react to
don't
you
care.
speaking their language as a foreigner? The truth is, it really depends on who you're speaking to.
Right.
If you speak English to an American, they're not going to be surprised at all.
True.
Americans don't know how much effort it takes to learn a language, so they won't care. They expect everyone to speak English already. Natives
Yeah.
from Australia, as well as the empty void off the coast of Australia, will be pleased with your efforts, but they still won't react much. English has the smallest shock factor
True.
out of any language in the solar
Yeah.
system. If you learn Chinese, Chinese people will do triple backflips. If you learn Spanish, Brazilians will cook you tacos. Heck, even if you learn German, Germans will at least appreciate you. But no, you're expected to speak English in 2024, which is sad. Imagine how beautiful the world would be if the British Empire had never happened. There's so much linguistic beauty out there in the world, but English unfortunately alphamogs all the competition. And as a native English speaker, that makes my life really easy. Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Now it's time to give English an official
It does make your life a lot easier because you can go to other countries and still use your own language. And oftentimes, particularly in touristic areas, you will be able to communicate. So it is a lot easier. But at the same time, it makes your life hell if you're trying to learn another language. Because at the end of the day, when I was in Japan and I was mostly using Japanese and I could speak Japanese, but when I first arrived and I really just wanted to practice my Japanese, but it wasn't that fluent, that could be problematic because people will switch to English if they know English. Now in Japan it's not as common, but you do occasionally run into a Japanese who does speak English, and when that's the case you can say bye-bye to your opportunity to practice, unless you tell them, when they start speaking English to you, you tell them, oh, sorry, I'm Sicilian, so do you speak Sicilian? And then they will switch back to English. I can assure you, tried and tested.
language Simp certified rating on the Simp scale.
Please.
On a scale of dog water to Giga Chad, I place English tragically in the dog water tier.
Right.
English is beautiful, and every English-speaking country is really cool and unique, minus England. But I really hate
Minus
the fact that English has a monopoly on the language learning market. Everyone is forced to invest in English, so it's hard to diversify your portfolio with other languages.
right.
And that just really ruins the appeal for me. I think the world would be a much better place if English were a dead language like Dutch. Yeah, it will help you find a job and live a better life, but we don't learn
I tried to pronounce Dutch, by the way, link in the description.
languages for self-improvement. We learn languages to shock natives, record
Yeah.
them without their permission, and post it to YouTube.
Yeah.
So if I wasn't a native speaker, I'd choose to be a Sigma male, and I'd refuse to ever even study English. If you enjoyed this video,
Very
consider
cool, very cool. Yeah, this was a good one. So where do we place it? Well, it's a difficult one because, I mean, the humor was great. The jokes were fantastic. I want to say the Italian episode is still my favorite. That one remains number 1. Japanese was pretty good. Gosh, I think I'm going to put this English review. I'm going to say number 3, number 2, Japanese, number 1, Italian. That's what I have now. We'll see if it changes. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.